And rolling sound, quiet.
Speak.
Good day, good world, and welcome to Subgenre, a podcast about the movies. I'm your host, Josh Dasal, and on Subgenre, we give love to films outside of the major categories. It's season 1, and that means all of our selections are in, without a doubt, my favorite film subgenre of all time, and one certainly worthy of the title of this show. That's right, we're talking submarine movies. And in this episode, we're tackling one of the all-time sub-film classics, the 1990 political action thriller starring Alec 30 Rock Baldwin and the late Sir Sean "You the Man Now Dog" Connery. Directed by Die Hard's John McTiernan, it's The Hunt for Red October. With me today to break things down is our guest host. He's a film aficionado, a music geek, an unashamed John McTiernan fan, and a self-described person wholly unqualified to critique this film. Hello, Deep Thought.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me. Very excited to talk about submarine films,
Absolutely.
about this film in particular. So excited.
Are you or have you been a submarine movie fan the same way as me?
Let me tell you, when I finally convinced my parents to get a hi-fi VHS player back in the 90s with ProLogic Surround, the first movie we watched was Crimson Tide, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of kicked off my appreciation of kind of home theater with sub-genre films.
I am pretty
go.
sure back in the day they issued Crimson Tide with any surround sound kit that you could be buying. Absolutely an awesome movie. One we are actually going to cover here on Subgenre later this season, so everybody stay tuned for that. Spoiler alert. Yeah, man, so Hunt for Red October. Let's get started. Let's talk about what in the world this movie is. I can't imagine anyone has not seen this film, but if they haven't, let's talk a bit about it.
Yeah, based on a novel by Tom Clancy of the same name. This is the first and only film to feature Alec Baldwin as Jack Ryan. Nominated for 3 Oscars, Best Sound Effects Editing, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, and winner of the Best Sound Effects Editing.
That's the one you give to an action film when you can't think of any other way to award it. You give it Best Sound Effects Editing. But good on him.
$30 million budget. That's big for 1989, 1990, and it was the 6th top grossing domestic film of that year, earning $122 million at the North American box office and more than $200 million worldwide.
Which is way more than I earned in 1990. Now, this was not that many years, I guess, after Top Gun came out. When Top Gun came out, the Navy was gung-ho about helping them out and showing off those fighter planes and lending them all this stuff because they were like, we're definitely going to get people signing up to be fighter pilots off of Top Gun. And I think, if I read it correctly, that's what they were hoping they were doing with Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, there were actually recruiting booths set up at the theaters. They were certainly hopeful that this would be the Top Gun of submarine movies.
Yeah, that's what you want to do. Is you want to get the 12-year-olds coming out of the matinee, get them early, make them submariners.
The critical response was mixed. You know, Roger Ebert gave it a fairly glowing review, and he was an important voice, a critical voice back in the day, but I don't think everybody loved it as much as he did.
You know what? Roger Ebert was right, and the rest of them were wrong. It's an awesome movie. That's why we're talking. Right. Say right. Suck it, all you critics out there. I guess that means it's time for our feature presentation. Our feature presentation is where we're going to walk you through this movie, dear listener, take you from the start to the finish. There will be spoilers. This is a show about the movies. We are going to talk about the movie from the inside out. And so if you have not seen the movie, or if you have seen the movie and forgot about it and want to watch it again, or if you just don't like spoilers, don't listen to this part of the show, but we hope that you do and stay with it. So The Hunt for Red October is this cool political action thriller starring Alec Baldwin as a low-level CIA analyst who is trying to save a Russian submarine captain that may or may not be trying to defect to the United States, but either way is being hunted by both the U.S. and the Soviet navies. Kind of a cool concept, don't you think, Deep Thought?
Yeah, man. I mean, it really sets itself up for some real fun.
So let's talk plot. It starts back in November of 1984, kind of right in the middle of the Cold War. We're watching Sean Connery as Marco Ramius and his second in command, Vasily Borodin, played by actor Sam Neill,
who we later saw as the lead in Jurassic Park.
In Jurassic Park, exactly. So he's going to go on to big things. They are on this brand new Russian submarine. It's a nuke sub. It is one that the world has never seen, and they are supposed to be taking it out really on a, I don't know, kind of a victory lap. They're going out into the ocean to conduct some exercises to show it off, but that may not be exactly what's going to happen in this particular movie, because if we cut back to Washington, D.C., we're seeing our CIA analyst, Jack Ryan, meeting with James Earl Jones, Darth Vader, voice of CNN, who is the deputy director of the CIA, and he's told, hey, this sub has mystery doors. Figure out what these doors are.
Yeah, and so, of course, he turns to an expert, the former sub driver, Skip Tyler, played by the great character actor Jeffrey Jones.
From Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the principal.
The principal, and he's played so many great roles in the 80s, Emperor Joseph in Amadeus, and the weird, quirky guests that come over and Beetlejuice, just a great actor. He's so subdued here, though. It's almost like funny to see him in this role.
And we may talk about him in a different episode of Subgenre in a different season, but he is in one of my favorite under-the-radar movies called Ravenous. If you have not seen Ravenous, please see Ravenous and then join me in another season. But yes, please continue. Goes to see Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Jones kind of figures out that this is this stealth engine propulsion system called a Caterpillar drive, and that could make this sub completely undetectable to sonar. This is way bad.
It's way bad. It's way bad. It could park nuclear warheads off the coast and no one would know anything about it until it's all over. So over on the Red October, Ramius has some plan going, right? We're still a little hazy as to what it is, but it starts by killing the political officer that's on board this Russian sub. You kind of got to assume there's a political officer on board any Russian sub, and basically telling him, where I am going, you cannot go.
This dude cannot be a part of this, whatever adventure these guys are going on.
And to cover it up, he makes up the excuse that the political officer slipped on his tea, which he gets to tell to the nervous ship's doctor, played by who?
The legendary Tim Curry, another of over-the-top amazing actor who is playing a very subdued role here.
But when he kills the political officer, he pulls Tim Curry aside. He pulls this nearby cook's assistant aside and says, hey guys, be my witnesses. I am taking the missile key from the political officer. I am putting it around my neck with my missile key. This makes Tim Curry go a little nuts. Captain! And because that means that Ramius can launch the nukes all by himself.
Yeah, and clearly this unnerves the doctor, Tim Curry, and creates some concern that the chain of command has been disrupted here.
Yeah, as much chaos as it potentially could cause, Ramius is in charge. He's very cool, says, don't worry about it. And he orders the Caterpillar drive, which is the pride of the Soviet Navy at this point. He orders that thing engaged for the first time. And as a U.S. attack sub called the Dallas Listen, Red October just up and disappears in front of them.
And completely throws the Americans off balance.
And the hunt is on, right? We maybe we saw this sub, maybe we didn't. Even the Russians can't hear it now because Red October is out, but it's out on a parade lap so far as we know, or so far as they know at this point. But back in Washington, D.C., we've got Jack Ryan with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who he's been asked to brief, and the National Security Advisor, Jeffrey Pelt, played by actor Richard Jordan. Love Richard Jordan.
Yeah, he was Michael J. Fox's uncle in Secret of My Success. I mean, one of his many roles over a long career, but...
And he is playing this kind of smarmy national security advisor, but he has something to say, and that is that the Soviet Navy has been ordered to find the Red October and to sink it, which throws the entire room into chaos. Ramius might be a madman. That's the only reason they can think of why that would happen. He must be coming to attack the United States. In the midst of all this chaos, Ryan slams his hand down on the table, says, son of a bitch, and voices an idea, and that is that he thinks Ramius is not coming to attack the U.S., but instead is trying to defect.
Yeah, and from then on, he's kind of man against the world. He's got to convince everybody that he's right. He's working off of a hunch, and that's all he's got, an educated guess, and he's got to convince everybody that comes along that he's right and that they're wrong.
And so Pelt says to him, look, I can give you a couple of days to prove this theory, but if you can't, we have to go and find this guy. Ryan says, why me? Why aren't you sending anybody else? And the answer is because he's expendable. So Mr. Expendable is put on the worst airplane ride in the entire world that's bouncing its way through a storm with the co-pilot giving him, a horror story about chunky industrial weight puke coming from the last guy.